Welcome to everyone to this special meeting of council. This meeting is called for the specific purpose to consider the 2020 budget for the city of Brampton. There's no national anthem or moment of reflection for the special meeting. We did that earlier today. All members of council will be present. We're just waiting for Councillor Charmaine Williams to join us. The clerk will note who is here at the moment. So for the approval of the agenda, I have a motion from Councillor Vicente and Councillor Bowman for the agenda of the special council meeting. All those in favor? Motion carries, and I will note that Councillor Williams is here now. We have delegations here today. Actually, but before I do delegations, I want to note, do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I declare a conflict of interest on the Economic Development Community Grants portion of the budget, as my son does graphics work for one of the companies listed on the grant program.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I declare conflict of under the Public Works section on compensation, as my brother and nephew work in the Public Works Department.
Councillor Fortini.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We have to declare a conflict as my daughter works part-time for bylaws.
Okay, the clerk will note those for the record. Before we, as a council, consider the 2020 budget, there is another opportunity to hear from the public on this matter. We will proceed with public delegations before council debates the budget. Please note the public notice regarding the city's budget approval process leading towards this special council meeting was advertised on the city website and social media, as well as published in the Brampton Guardian. If persons here tonight wish to speak to council about the budget, I ask you please come forward, since this is the designated time at this meeting to hear your comments about the budget. First up, we have Richard Antonio, Chair of the Peel Health Coalition.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of council, for allowing me to present to you today. I am joined by a gentleman from the Peel Health Coalition. My name is Richard Antonio, Chair for the Peel Health Coalition. I'm also a co-chair for the Ontario Health Coalition at this time. And it is a budget-related matter. It is budget as it relates to healthcare. My understanding is that the city has a 1/3 healthcare investment mandate, and just a question as to what might be allocated in real dollar investments into Brampton's healthcare is a question that I had, but I'm going to request at the very outset for 5 more minutes because 58 other municipalities have approved this motion, and it's 58 municipalities in Ontario have approved this motion, and I would like to get into talking about the specifics as to healthcare.
Okay, we had a discussion about this earlier tonight. We're trying to keep the delegations to 5 minutes max because we have a heavy agenda tonight. So if you could try to keep your comments within that 5 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you anyways. I just want to start by saying we're a grassroots organization and more than 500,000 members across Ontario. And we have a lot of members locally as well. We're non-partisan, and we don't tell people how to vote or endorse any political parties. Our mandate is to protect and improve our public healthcare system for all, and we advocate to protect services as public and non-profit, and to protect local accessible services on the principles that underline our public healthcare system in Canada, principles of compassion and equity. That being said, there's public health units, there's ambulance and paramedical services, there's long-term care, local public hospitals where there's been drastic, you know as much as well as I do, there's been drastic cuts, but to go into detail is what I was hoping to achieve. I guess I would just focus on the municipal council resolution directly that has been approved of by 58 other municipalities. If you would kindly put that up, please. It says, whereas public health care consistently ranks as a top priority in public opinion polls, whereas public health provides vital health promotion and prevention services based on the unique demographic and economic, social, and cultural needs of our communities. I just would like to...
I've just been advised by the clerk, and thank you for presenting something that we care passionately about. But this, tonight we're just considering the budget. We can't consider resolutions like this until the committee in council, which is going to happen next Wednesday.
This takes away from the budget, Mayor, if I may just interject. This takes away from the budget. It's downloading services onto municipalities. 58 other municipalities felt the burden of having to provide services to people in their respective municipalities. It's taking away from the budget, and that's why that's why there's a burden in having to present this to you.
So I would just say at the regional level and here in Brampton, we passed resolutions already declaring a public health emergency, and we've had data presented by physicians and patients. This would be consistent with the advocacy we've done. I suspect council would be happy to support this, but a resolution like this can't be passed on the budget night. It would be during our committee of council. But if you wanted to make comments in regards to the budget, you can. But in terms of this motion, tonight would not be the platform for that. That would be committee and council.
Fair enough. I mean, okay.
And I just say that you're speaking to the converted here. We are very passionate about healthcare, and we could add you to the agenda and this resolution. I'd be happy to put it forward at the next committee and council. And just looking to council, I think Councillor Singh wants to say something about this because he moved the motion on the healthcare crisis. There's no objection here, and you're going to find a supportive audience in Brampton. It's just the right time to do it. Councillor Singh?
Yeah, well, you said exactly. It's just a procedural thing. Council will support this, I'm very confident. And I'll work with the mayor and bring it forward at our next meeting. If you can come, that's good. If you can't, that's
Sure.
Yeah, and so there's no concern about getting this passed. I think it's just procedural, that's all it is.
Okay, great. Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thank
okay,
you.
and I'll get your contact information on the side.
So it will be the next council meeting on the, okay.
On Wednesday, so Councillor Singh will step out to connect, but look forward to Brampton signing on to your campaign.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next up on our list is Mark Seb Amali, a Brampton resident. Hopefully I didn't butcher your last name.
You did all right. So, happy Ash Wednesday. Good luck to anyone, to whatever you have to give up for Lent. Also, I want to give a thank to Terry Brenton, who was following up with me with regards to getting my presentation. I was unable to do so, but she was earnest in making sure I could try to get something up. So I want to thank the GTAA for actually presenting their proposal of improving the improving service to the airport through the Route 505, or what would be proposed as Route 505 going directly to the airport. It's pretty good that now there are more connections to the airport, more connections to the City of Toronto, and hopefully this furthers improvement in transit overall. I just want to thank Councillors Santos and Dellin for moving the motion to enable that, and then members of council for adopting that through committee. Also, with the improvements to the BRT, we have, I think in my last delegation, I spoke about just improving services overall through those routes, and just overall improvement to transit in general. Perhaps the city that allocated spaces, parking spaces for people working at the airport will realize they're going to have a lot of empty spaces, so one day they can, designate those areas for something else. It, however, goes without mentioning that there was not improvement to general, or improvement to transit overall, just to the general routes. I like to rely on transit. I like to take transit because I realized it's given me the affordability to get around. I look at my bank account, I'm thankful that, my friends talked about their insurance rates just going up year over year, and I'm thankful I'd never have to have that conversation within myself. It's not something I need to take account for budget. Every year, it's probably one of the most fortunate situations living in the city that transit is reasonable in the sense that I can go wherever I need to, whether it's to the city of Mississauga, city of Toronto, or even within the city to just get around. However, on the weekends, there are those days where I will have to stomach those 30-minute connections. Sometimes just even, watching a bus just take off while I'm left waiting there, and 30 minutes of my day go by, and on a day like this, it can be pretty difficult having to stomach those days. But here we are, day by day. I mean, it's a debate that will go on forever about how transit is seen. Though I do hope one day that we will look back and see that perhaps the way we went about in terms of development perhaps could have been altered differently. I won't say it's wrong. I will say that it was just a different perspective, and that's the way it goes. But I think that eventually that we will understand that prioritizing transit really is a great benefit to everyone. With the improvement to the connection to the airport, you've now improved two-way traffic through so many avenues. Through your BRT routes, you have the 501 connecting through York University, you have the 511 going through Humber College, and then now you have the 505 going through the airport. So not only are you connecting people between us to the City of Toronto, you're actually connecting people between the City of Toronto and the City of Brampton through many avenues, and not only that, you're providing low-cost alternative solutions for any passengers that would need to go to the airport for whatever reasons. And with the UPX also available there, they can get to the city anytime. And hopefully the service that's been allocated to go to the airport is a very reliable one, and one that is recognized as perhaps one that could be further improved. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, members.
Thank you for coming forward. Next up is Jovinder Sodhi from the Homeowner Welfare Association. I don't see Jovinder. Okay, next up is Sylvia Roberts. Welcome back, Sylvia.
Hello again, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a resident of Ward 3. So this is from the 2018 to 2022, the 5-year business plan for Brampton Transit. We're basically at the 2021 mark already for ridership, and if the January numbers are any indication, we're going to shoot past 2022. Note, when they came up with this 5-year plan, they also came up with the idea for how many hours to do. So 1.3 million. The service increase that they requested, 52,000, is exactly what was proposed in this 5-year plan that was approved in 2017. And our ridership has grown dramatically faster than we predicted. So it seems a little bit odd that we have more ridership, but we're going to do less hours than we planned. So as you can see, ridership has grown massively. In most situations, its ridership is roughly correlated with service hours, but here it's gone dramatically faster because there's been such a huge demand. So you can see service hours goes up very linearly, and ridership looks like it's gone up pretty quickly. This is a much larger time series. So we've had low ridership growth this year, but that's actually not unprecedented for Brampton. That's happened multiple times before. So you'll see there were 3 major ridership years in 2016, 2017, 2018. I believe in 2018 there was a low number. Was there no service hours added for 2018? I think that was what was mentioned. So you can see that 2009, when you would see ridership. So because of how transit is, you normally get the buses and then you have them fitted and then you can start the September service. So if you approve it for 2018 budget, most of the service takes effect in 2019. So you can see what happened to not adding ridership. It plunged. Actually, that year it was negative, very slightly negative, but still. Then you start adding service, you notice there's another 3-year huge peak, then you run into overcrowding, but because you've continued to add hours, it recovers, it's a little bit slower ridership, and then have all the right pieces in place, and it goes up again. So the key to this is it's gone up very quickly over the past 15 years, but that's because we've managed to sustain steady improvements, because there's no way you can add enough hours to keep up with 18% ridership. It's just not possible. But if you continue to add the hours, even when it's lower, you actually can keep up with it overall. So this is a map this is from Ward 6, the major improvements last year. So Route 26 got new Sunday service. Route 27 got Saturday service, and Route 28 is brand new service. So because it's only really 3 years for the transit budget, when they add new routes like this, it can take a year for it to take effect. So when you make judgments based on 1 year's ridership, what you do is you basically tell transit, don't add new routes. And I think Councillor Palashi would agree that with new growth, you do, when you're adding new, especially here where you're adding higher density stuff, there's mid-rise, you need to make sure there's transit service. So some of the developments are planned to open in October 2020, but to make sure the services are in place by the time people move in, there have been service improvements last year in September to guarantee it's there. When you say you put another large development at Mayfield and Kennedy, for example, and Council votes that they need to add more service to there, but if you demand you need to see immediate results, you're telling them not to do that. Because if they had hours to Queen, it's immediately there, as Councillor Fortini knows, with all the people being bypassed. So you need to continue to add these hours, especially those other routes. If you were adding those, perhaps you would see Sunday service added to the 27 and Saturday service added to the 28. So when people are there, they can actually use it. That's transit-oriented development, and part of that is transit is working with the planning department. So if you want to get your sustainable mode share up, you need to do this. And part of that is you need to extend transit service. So you're telling developers to do this, and then they go do this, and then you're basically skipping out on your obligation. Does that sound like open for business to make promises and then not keep them? I really think that you need to add the service hours that were planned, that have been on the plan since 2017, and which are needed more than when they were planned in 2017, because we'd planned a lower rider. We didn't plan as many people as we have now. Thank you.
Under, so great. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Deepak Patel, Brampton resident. Deepak.
Respected Mayor and all council members, today I know we are going to finalize the budget, and everybody thinking like, what's the utility of this smart building compared to the budget? So one way we can bring the revenue to the city, another way we can save the money on operational expense, and this is a big tool in saving the energy in terms of the energy saving and cost saving. So typically, building consume 50% of the energy we consume in the commercial building are waste due to mismanagement. 60% is HVAC and lighting, the load of the total building. Typically, we consume 1 kilowatt per ton in the cooling. So what we measure, we cannot control. Typical building automation pattern we have in our city is we just control and on off the equipment, but we don't really go beyond that. Using the smart building technology, we can collect the data from the building, analyze it, and control it at the next level. So this smart building can predict the data and predict the load of the building the next day. Based on that, we can generate the smart grid. That smart grid bring to the smart city. So in overall, we can predict the consumption, we can predict how much electricity and the fuel we're going to consume. Based on that, we can have a power generation in tune with the grid, and we never have power outage. So how the smart building works, it predicts the data based on the outside temperature, your weather data, the building data. All together, it analyzes and the analytics with the machine learning algorithm. Using that, we can send back the optimized result to the building, and that's where we can optimize the energy saving in the building. So this is a typical example of programmable thermostat which consume 1 million BTU per day on a 30-degree Fahrenheit, 18-degree day. Compared to the predictive algorithm, we can reduce that by 70% to 300,000 BTU per day. So that's a huge energy saving without compromising the occupant comfort. So we have equalized temperature throughout the building, and still we can save the energy. This is a typical architecture of the smart building. Data can be collected from anywhere, using the smart sensor, smart controllers, from the any other device. All those data can go to the analytics engine where the data is crunched, analyzed, and programmed better, sent back to the device. So we can control the particular equipment and building in a better shape that can result in ultimately the energy saving. These are the typical building controls, how the smart controllers look like. I have a hardware available. If you want to see, I can show it to everybody. This is a typical Raspberry Pi hobbyist computer we can utilize for the smart building controls. I have that also available for everybody to see. So low-cost controllers, low-cost investment is not expenditure in the smart building. We are investing, and that money can be get back in 1 to 3 years. The ROI is pretty quick because of its efficiency in terms of operation. This is an analytical controller which has all these algorithms built in. So putting that in place is plug and play, and we can utilize the building energy efficiently. This is the next level of data analytics. Data analytics can be used in any operation, building automation, energy management, industrial automation. We can say any application, and we can utilize this data analytics and save the energy. How it save the energy? So it understands, prioritize, and budget. So based upon the building envelope, it predicts the energy consumption. Based on that, it make a bench line with a base mark that this building should consume a certain kilowatt-hour energy. And if the building is consuming more than that, it can go to the particular pinpoint that this is the device or the equipment is not consuming more energy and is not efficient. So we can consider as a life cycle cost, and we can get rid of that equipment to save the energy. Second is energy consumption based on the weather data and equipment operation. So again, based on the weather prediction, it can analyze and predict that this much the consumption of the building for the next day. And based on that, we can say that this building is consuming more energy compared to the weather pattern. And based on that, we can even predict the total consumption of the building a year in advance. So these are the machine learning tools available in this technology right now, and we can utilize that to make any building a smart building, and we can reduce the energy consumption by 30%.
Okay, thank you. We've at the
Okay,
time
so
has expired.
that's all. These are more analytics, but I just want to say that utilizing this latest technology, we can bring our city smart. We can bring the investor to our city and bring the city into the next level.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a motion to receive the delegations, moved by Councillor Vicente, seconded by Councillor Bowman. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, moving on. Members of Council, the 2020 budget is before us. Do members have any specific questions for staff about the budget or wish to speak to the budget again tonight? Councillor Bowman?
Thank you very much through you, Mr. Mayor. I know it's been a long process so far, and I thank all the departments for putting such hard work into their budgets. I do have some questions, and they're about areas that we didn't hear from. So I don't know if we're supposed to hear from the various directors of these divisions, but I will go ahead and ask my questions. Yeah. Did you want to say something, Dave?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I've just asked the clerk to take a look at his email if there's a presentation there. I'm happy to get started on it. I know there's a reconciliation that's requested that we're prepared for, and I have Finance has just passed along a presentation with respect to some questions you had yesterday, Councillor Bowman.
Yeah, I can ask other questions while they find.
If you can, yeah.
Yep, while they find this report. Okay. First question. It's actually on cap sum 4, capital budget, and it's in the 2022 budget, but I wanted to ask about it today. It's $13 million for storage. I just wonder what we're going to be storing. Yeah, cap sum 4. And it's 2022, $13,623,000 for storage. I don't know whose that is.
No, that's through you, Chair. That's me. I'm just getting to the relevant caption 4.
It just says downtown storage, Derek, if that's a...
Yeah, so my understanding, through you, Chair, my understanding of this issue is that our current storage requirements exceed our current capacity, and so our design group is looking for facilities within the downtown area to address some of those needs. The specifics of it, I would have to get back to you on, but it really is our current storage facility that we use in the downtown is just exceeding its capacity.
Okay, so that would be to build one, I guess, 13 million?
Through you, Chair, I believe that money is to construct and also any probably land components that would be necessary to obtain land to find that.
Okay, thank you. I know it's in 2022, but I just thought I would ask now. Derek, I might as well ask you this as well. We were at the National Curling Day. It sounds strange, but yes, Councillor Willens and the Mayor and I were there at Memorial Arena at the Brampton Curling Club. They have put in a request for new curling stones. And I know this may sound funny or it may sound menial, but they've had the same curling stones since 1965. And they said that when they have tournaments there, when they have like Tournament of Hearts or anything like that, that they try to get in there, that is part of the issue. They also have the issue now that the stones can't be repaired any further. I guess after 60 years, we've come to the end of life cycle. So they had requested if there was any way we could put into the budget new curling stones for the facility. Is that at all possible? Can we find the budget money somewhere, or do you already have it somewhere in this budget?
Through you, Chair, we are well aware of the issue at Memorial with the Curling Club with the stones. Our staff are really looking to consolidate a purchase, and we were going to come forward in the 2021 budget at both Memorial and the Chinguacousy Curling Club to take a look at the inventory because both clubs have indicated that their curling stones are at the life cycle. Both clubs have indicated, though, they can get through this year,
yes.
And that we have indicated that if there's some things that do occur before we can get it in the 2021 budget, that we would look to replace like the one-offs until we're able to make a big purchase. My staff tell me that it's better for us to make a big purchase rather than the singular or the one-off purchase. So our plan is to do it over the next couple of years, but we have been in contact with Memorial, but to treat both clubs equitably, we wanted to take a look at both our curling clubs to make sure that we purchase appropriately.
Okay, I'm just looking that, you know, if our curling clubs, if we're looking at sports tourism, for example, we've already had Scotty's Tournament of Hearts there. And if we're looking at any curling tournament, Pinties or anything like that, those stones are essential to getting those tournaments. So if we can, rather than putting it in the 2021 budget, which won't get the stones until midway or halfway through next season, if we could get them this year so that they could start the season, that would be much preferable. But I'll leave that to you to see if we can find that somewhere over the course of summer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Claire, economic development. Do we have specific budgets for the promotion of the various university options?
Sorry, Mayor, if I may,
Oh.
Councillor
David,
Bowman.
you've got, oh, okay,
Yeah, we're ready.
okay. Take it
If
away.
I can take a crack at it, and then happy to answer all your questions with respect to those divisions.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to thank finance staff for putting this together so quickly, given the request made yesterday. Happy to present the divisions within the Office of the CAO as a high-level snapshot as per the request. Council is aware as well that the Office of the CAO provides strategic direction to the corporation, empowering employees to find opportunities to increase speed, agility, and responsiveness, once again, to your term of council priorities. The Office of the CEO includes City Clerk, Economic Development and Culture, Human Resources, Internal Audit, myself and staff, Strategic Communications, and Strategic Development Division, which is currently under review, as this council is aware. As noted, the Office of the CEO leads the corporation in implementing your term of council priorities, and we've highlighted this many times throughout the budget process. And so as again, a snapshot with respect to the City Clerk Division, there's an operating budget there of 4.2 million, and it says revenues, but really the funding source for the division is about 50% property tax, as well as their own user fees and service charges. Budget Committee approved or recommended many of those user fee changes, I believe, yesterday. And so you're familiar with those. You can see there was one FTE request put through, and that's a coordinator elections and privacy. There's some additional expenses, other expenses that are really attributed to an increase in pre-council recognition and those types of things that the clerk's division provides support on. Economic development and culture, I know Councillor Bowman started with a question, and we're happy to go back to that. And that division is 18 million operating expense. Again, on the revenue side and/or the funding source allocation is predominantly property tax. They do have additional grants and subsidies that come in, as well as user fees and service charges, much of that reflective of the Rose Theatre. Again, on the expenditure side, bulk of it is salaries and benefits, but there's also capital and repairs and maintenance, once again reflected towards the theater. There's a FTE request there that committees approved or recommended as well. That's an advisor economic development. You can see as well some of the adjustments with respect to revenue is really what we've done across the board, or certainly did our best to do across the board, is to right-size budgeting to actuals. And you can see the line item year-end forecast revenue to 2019 budget is a difference. So 2020 budget, we've accommodated that, the true actuals. HR, $11 million operating budget, again, predominantly funded through property taxes. And again, the expense side is predominantly salary and benefits. This human resources operating budget snapshot is predominantly a status quo budget year over year. Internal audit as well, predominantly funded by property taxes, and it's about $1 million. Same thing, 85% plus is salary and benefits, and it's a relatively small but effective team that audit committee members would be very well familiar with. The expenses there, you can see there's a slight adjustment. Once again, that's a budgeting to actuals. The Office of the CEO, so that's myself and a small, I would say, effective team, predominantly funded by property taxes. The office and administrative line there is the FCM AMO corporate memberships that the corporation has are funded through that. Staff development and professional services, those are things like government advocacy and that type of stuff. Some of the university file funds are from there. Strategic communications, that's about $4.2 million funded through property taxes, predominantly, once again, 78% salary and benefits. A bunch of that, this council is very familiar with, is the advertising, marketing, and promotion for the municipality and many of the initiatives that we do throughout the year. Strategic development, once again, this particular area is under review, and it started through organizational performance and corporate projects divisions. And so we are making those adjustments within this budget envelope of approximately $3 million. Once again, the vast portion is salary and benefits funded through property taxes. There is a slight capital component here that includes the cultural services. That is inclusive of the Arts Walk of Fame, the theater facilities upgrade. On the economic development, $4.1 million is 1.3 for cybersecure catalyst, 2.5 million for Algoma University expansion, and the FDI strategy, $300,000 is also there. And you can see how that's being funded as well, predominantly through parkland and other reserves and other funding. So that's a quick snapshot of the divisions within the Office of the CEO currently. And once again, all the detailed information is provided to you and has been provided to you, but happy to give the overview and take any questions. Many of the directors are here as well to assist in answering questions.
Okay, thank you. And back to that question I originally asked about the budgets for the promotions of the various university options. What do we have for those?
Specifically, you're asking about marketing the actual programs?
Right.
So the budget would come from economic development from our operating budget.
Okay, because I see a line there that's $425,000, and it just says Brampton U, that's it. And that's funded through the General Rate Stabilization Fund.
So the Brampton U would be in the CAO's office, not with economic development.
Okay.
Yeah, so council approved that initiative and that funding, and that's currently within the corporate projects division. And so what's the question specifically there, Councilor, because that was
is that specific to Brampton U, or is that to promote our universities, the options?
Well, I believe there are 300,000 of that is specifically for the Brampton U initiative as per your council motion. Okay. And the balance, I would say, is more broadly post-secondary versus the Brampton U solely.
Okay, and sponsorship money that comes in through ECDEV, where does that get posted to?
Through the chair, when we were talking about the sponsorship agreements, they would flow through to the facilities that would actually have the sponsorship on them. So if it was a rec center, that sponsorship revenue would flow through to the recreation center, so that those monies could be reinvested back in those facilities.
Okay, great. I'm just wondering if next year, maybe in the budget, we can have just a notation that how much revenue was brought in, because it is brought in through ECDEV, but we're posting it to the various rec centers. So it should be noted where that revenue actually came from, if we can do that. Sorry, I've got a few questions here because we didn't get a chance for that. HR. David, am I speaking to you about HR, or is?
You can.
Okay. A couple of years ago, council had requested that HR put in place some type of program to hire vets, but we never heard anything else about that program. And I'm just wondering if we have forgotten about that program, or if we are working on it, or do we need to put money into research for that program? I'm not sure. You'll have to come back?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that personally, but I'm taking a note to do a follow-up.
Okay. There's a report that I got this afternoon from Finance. Thank you very much, David, for putting that forward. I had asked a little while back during council meetings if we could separate out our consultants, the value of consultants' fees that we currently pay for consultants, mainly because there's a lot of them that came up that I felt were a little high. And I'm a little astounded by the number that we've got here. And it's a total for all the operating offices, just of outstanding contracts now of just over $7 million. So we're paying that out to consultants. And I'm just hoping that as we move through this process in the next year, that we can sort of look at some of these contracts and say, that might warrant hiring a person that we can give those skills to, that we can train internally to be that position, especially in long-term projects like the 2040. Like I said, $7 million going out to consultants, it seems like a lot of money to me. David?
Yes, through the chair, I just want to make it clear that that could be over a number of years. If you procure a contract with a consultant, you may have a study that goes on 2, 3, 4 years in some cases. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that's not an annual spend necessarily. It could be spread out over a period of time.
Okay, as long as we're going to continue to look at providing the skills that we need in this city to run an effective city by having those people actually work for the city. Final question is, we have every single budget, we have dollars left over, surpluses. And a lot of times those surpluses seem to be coming from hires that we had, that we didn't get those hires on for 4 or 5 months, or in some cases we didn't bring that hire on at all. And you know, we're looking at running an effective organization here. And if in any outside organization, when we know people are leaving, we have somebody there who's ready to step into that position the next day or even 2 weeks prior to work with these people to ensure that they're up to speed and they know what's coming and what the job is. And I'm just hoping that as we move forward, surpluses are great. You'll see that we're able to use the surpluses this year, and it's wonderful that all the operating departments contribute to the surpluses, but I'm just wondering whether it's more important for us to have employees in place, ready to go when we know employees are leaving, than to enjoy that surplus at the end of the year. So I'm hoping that all the departments, when we know people are leaving or when we know people are retiring, I'm really hoping that we can get people in, trained, and ready day one to step into that position so that there's no vacancies at all. And that's just a comment to everybody. Like I said, surpluses are wonderful. We can spend them however we want, but in the most effective organizations, I would prefer to see people continuing on in place without any sort of stoppage in the knowledge flow that moves forward with our positions. So again, thank you very much. You guys have all put a lot of time into these budgets. We appreciate it. I think everybody who is associated and who has ever done a budget knows how difficult it is to do these. So thank you all very much. Thanks.
Councillor Fertini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification to Jez Beer. You sent an email about the grass, and it says here that we approved from 12 cuts to 10 cuts? Or was that a mistake? The email came from yourself.
Through the chair, we are sticking to 12 cuts.
Okay, because it said here that council approved a reduction cutting from 12 to 10 of our parks and boulevards. I thought we left it at 12.
We left 12. We are sticking to 12.
Okay, because that's just for clarification. Thank you.
Councillor Singh.
No, I said mention, you want me to mention it, or no? Okay, we'll mention it. He actually had something else to add. You wanna add it, yeah. Sorry, there's a little bit, I apologize.
Yes, Councilor Fortini.
I apologize.
Yep. So, sorry, thank you for reminding me. So, I remember we were talking about the locks, 720,000, I think it was. Is that a 3-year or 1 year? Do you know?
3-year.
Is it 3 year? You ever maybe considering maybe hiring someone to just do it? Instead of getting them out? It's mostly, what it costs is mostly the service calls. Coming back and forth, just an idea. Maybe for the next budget.
Through the chair, that's something we can, staff can take away and we can look at that.
Yeah, I think on the day that that was released, you heard a lot of frustration from council that that was spent, and so I think staff heard us that we want that to be done differently in future. That's a diplomatic way of saying it. Thank you for the reminder, Councilor Fortini.
Yeah. Am I next? Okay. So, yeah, I concur. I think that might be a suggestion worth exploring. So I see all the motions have been updated to item 5.1, recommendations. But I did ask for an update on the counts where we're at, because is that, unless I missed it, or is that next?
Yes.
Yeah, through the chair, we actually thought it might be a good idea to bring this up now.
It's perfect, 'cause I need that to like.
Yeah, and I thought we'd finish the questions, then we can give.
Sorry,
the
my
tell.
question was to, okay, perfect, I'll just wait.
And we may have some other things that's like the adult entertainment issue that
Yeah,
could affect the
yeah.
number.
Apologies. Yeah,
Okay. Councilor Willens.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Can you go back one slide on this one, the CAOs? Just back one, Peter. Just something stood out there when I was looking at it. Since it's the first time we've seen it. It's the I think it's the second last slide. Nope, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. There. In the, it's got there, it's got funding, cash in lieu of parkland. Why is that in the CAO's budget? I know we have strict regulations on what we can use that for, but why does it fall under the CAO? Why did that not fall under Public Works Engineering or Planning, Parks, or?
Through the chair, actually, this is a broader category, so it's other funding inclusive of CIL, legacy funds, general rate stabilization. It just happens to be part of, we have other funding for capital programs that do have CIL. In this specific instance, no, there's no cash in lieu being utilized for this this department here.
All right.
Yeah. Good catch, though.
Thank you. And one other question. In terms of in bylaw and enforcement, have we looked at bringing on, I know in the past, where's Paul? I know in the past we've had some temporary and part-time workers that work nights to pick up the slack on what our guys can't do on weekends and whatnot. Have we looked at putting something like that in the budget because they are revenue neutral? Maybe adding, 4 of these. I know, I think in the past we've had 2 to do those when we got an overabundance of the, I know it's a tough, touchy subject, but signs posted on posts and on the corners and, first, second, third mortgages and whatnot. That was very successful. It was revenue neutral, I think, on those ones. Have we looked at that in this budget to see if we can bring some of them on part-time to help pick up the slack from our full-time guys that are out there that can't get there on weekends and whatnot?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It is a good program. We continue to do it. We have 4 part-timers that we keep on staff.
So that's
the trouble with that is sometimes we graduate them to full-time. So staffing that part of our division is difficult. So if I say we have 4 part-timers year-round, we probably average about 7 or 8 months out of those part-timers when we move them around. They are revenue neutral. They're actually revenue positive. And we could. I didn't include it in my budget submission this year because we were focused on secondary units, but it's a possibility.
Maybe we can look at that, because I know it was, like you say, it was revenue positive when we were doing it, and you say it does move them up. They do graduate into full-time employees eventually if they're good enough?
Well, if you, through you, Mr. Chair, if you look at our sign collection, it's primarily done through our part-time workers, and we're almost 20,000 signs a year, so that they take down. And they issue a significant amount of parking tickets. They're always in my top 10 performers.
Okay, so maybe if we can't get it into 2020, maybe that's something we can look at for 2021?
Sorry. If I may, through the chair, one of the findings from the service review was in fact what you've articulated, Councillor Wellens, is to look at and further explore the opportunities in and around part-time officers as there is that additional benefit and flexibility. That was part of our work plan that Paul was going to be exploring through 20 and part of our 21 budget ask if it continues to make sense.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can I just add one more thing through you, Mr. Chair? One of the things we're really cognizant of is we have the new GTECNA system that we're deploying as of this Sunday completely, and we want to look at how we do our ticketing. So I'm hesitant to hire more people if we're effective doing what we are with the technology we have. So that was something that always played in my mind. That was one of the rationales I used why I didn't ask this year. I want to see how our software, our hardware performs for us.
Okay, fair enough. No, great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wellens. I see we've exhausted the list. Before we have the motions, I had just a follow-up question about the, so don't sit down just yet. As you practice your stretch, we held the motion on the adult entertainment licenses, and you were going to do a little bit of research and want to see if you got feedback from the Peel Police and the City of Hamilton, because this would be an additional revenue of $60,000, I understand, for the city, and we would make Brampton an inconvenient place for adult entertainment establishments.
To you, Mr. Chair, if you would indulge me, I'd like Teresa to present what her findings are first, and then we'll slide right into the other information.
So we did some research yesterday afternoon, this morning. We connected with a couple municipalities, and we also consulted with legal. So we have determined that we want to make sure that the fees that we're charging are justifiable, that we are charging a fee that is reflective of the costs that we are putting into the program. So we sat down today, we went through all of our costing, and we have come up with a enhanced program for providing inspections and enforcement for the Body Rub Parlor business. The adult entertainment, right now we don't have any in the city, so we are recommending that we leave them as originally recommended to the 75th percentile. But we are looking to propose 4 inspections annually a year on all the Body Rub parlors, as well as additional inspections that are unscheduled. And reflective of those costs to perform that are in the new recommended fee increases.
So to you, Mr. Chair, what we did find out from the Hamilton experience, and we did talk to our partners in Peel Police, is that Hamilton, first off, has 2 body rub parlors. They did have others before that, but they only had 2 presently. They had this plan in place, and they've been working this for approximately 15 years. So they're very accustomed to the setup there, in the sense that all their clientele are going to 2. They didn't see that significant drop when they had more. They just, people going underground, they just relocated to other premises that were available, which was good. That's a good sign for us, because we can still monitor those people. So we're not as concerned with that. In Hamilton, what they do is they use a portion of the licensing fee to fund other enforcement when it comes to the illegal body rub places. So there is a connection there. And we did reach out to Peel Police. We do have a liaison going on, and we will be able to cooperate with them when it comes to what we have here. Keeping in mind, we have 11, and our cap is 8. So if we put this in place, or when we put this in place, we may lose 1 or 2 as well. So that'll be a revenue change as well.
Okay, and we asked you the question, there were the concerns about driving this industry underground. Were you able to get any additional insights for council on that?
No, we believe that this will not necessarily drive it underground. Okay. It'll just relocate it to the other premises that are available to them.
You mean outside of the city?
We would hope.
Okay. Councilor Palucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess I'm not really understanding the correlation between us driving them anywhere. From my understanding, we have 42 operators, 11 establishments, and they currently cycle within those 11 establishments, and we only have 8 licenses?
So we have, no. So our adult, through the chair, through our adult entertainment establishment bylaw, when it was enacted in 2017, Council of the Day enacted an 8 cap for the city for body rub parlors. At that time, there were 17 existing. They were grandfathered in, which is a typical practice. And we, in the couple years since, we've lost 5 of them, and so we're down to 11. The cap still remains at 8, so no new body rub parlors can apply for licenses or come in until we're below the 8 mark.
Okay, what's Hamilton's cap, do you know?
2.
Their cap is 2?
They have 2, their cap, I believe.
I don't know if they have a cap, but they only have 2.
They only currently have 2.
2.
But
And
I'm
they've
not,
had 2 for quite a while.
okay, and I'm not getting from you where, what I wanted to know about driving them underground. Does Hamilton Police, do they have an understanding of if they've gone?
I can tell you that City of Hamilton works closely with the Hamilton Police on this issue. To drive underground, that's a very complicated question, because there are 2 different businesses. They are distinctly different businesses, how they approach it. The body rub parlors are it's not as, it's more legal of a business. The underground piece is completely illegal, and it involves other serious crime, where the body rub parlors are not that. They do have clientele, they do go there for purposes, but it's not completely similar to the underground activities, where we talk about human trafficking, where we talk about the illegal activities that transpire down there.
But, so Paul, so that's my fear, that we raise this rate, given, you know, even the cap that we have, with the amount of operators that we have, and it has the potential to increase the human trafficking side of things. Where Hamilton is known for, as a hub of human trafficking, right along the corridor. This is my biggest worry. Any decisions that we make could potentially cause this to go.
And maybe just for the conversation I had with Peel Police, the hub right now, unfortunately, for human trafficking is in Brampton and Mississauga. We have more cases in Brampton and Mississauga than the rest of the country combined. And so unfortunately, we've become the hub, and the police said the activity is around these type of institutions.
And sorry, and I think what I meant to say was Hamilton was the hub. At one point, they were. And
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to say that in imposing a higher fee, I don't think it's going to drive it underground. I think it's just going to cause the owner to pay a little bit more, but the fees that people pay to go to those places, what the services rendered, they'll all pretty much stay pretty much the same. They won't change there. You will not see it go anywhere else, because there is that clientele doesn't want to get into that other world. That other world is a very dangerous world. So this is safer than much. So I don't see that correlation yet.
okay. What about reducing the cap even more? Or
So-
reduce it, or how about implementing a cap on operators?
So part of our recommendation is that we will, or we're suggesting that we're going to continue to review this after budget. We'll do further consultation, we'll review our bylaw again, and we'll come back to council when we've completed that comprehensive engagement and have recommendations that can address some of those concerns.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and I would say this justifies, this would enable more inspections.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
How many inspections did we do previously?
Previously to 219, we did very few, probably under 10 or 12. In 2019, we were very aggressive. And we, as I said before, well, it would be my plan to do 4 regularly scheduled per establishment plus unannounced inspections on a routine basis.
Councillor Willens.
Yeah, quickly while you're up here, Paul, and I think it's for Rick way up in the top there, and maybe actually for Bill. From where are we with the igloo vision we had? Maybe Paul, remember we had the igloo vision demonstration. I know it's not in the budget, but maybe we can look at that in the future for.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can tell you we are looking at it. As soon as Rick joins me, we've had discussions very recently on this.
I know that there's a few of us that did a tour of it, and it's pretty cool to create simulations that in an unsafe that would normally be an unsafe environment for both fire and for BMO and for our building guys, in fact. So I know it's probably not, I know you're probably looking at it, but I know it's not here, but maybe let's keep that on the radar, because I think that could save everybody a lot of money in the long run when it comes to these hazardous situations and when it comes to the safety of our residents as well.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I think, Councillor, that you'll actually find it is in the budget.
It is, okay.
But it is, so we submitted a capital request from the building division for that installation. But the way, it's structured, what you'll find is that it's moved from a buildings capital request into an IT capital request.
Okay.
The funding source remains in the building division, but the capital project lands in IT. So you might not have made the connection. But it has been submitted. But it is part of a bigger picture. And right now what we're hoping to do, Paul and I are both, at capacity at FCC in terms of what we've asked for in this base budget and, our next 3 years of projected growth. And so in line with this request for the installation of this training system, we've also asked for an expansion to the facility. And so I believe in the 2020 budget is funds allocated for the design of that additional space, and in 2021, the construction. Now, I'm not too sure if that got consolidated both into 2020, to be honest with you, but I think it's consecutive years. So design in 2020 and construction in 2021.
Okay, perfect. Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we have the recommendation, to the clerk, we have the recommendation of this new model. Can we get the wording on that? I understand Councillor Santos will be the mover to adopt that. Yes, the one that we held from the other day. So the staff just recommended.
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff have prepared a motion if member Councillor Santos wishes to introduce it. So, recommendation BC 011 it was referral back, and if council wants to take a positive action, then in red is the proposed motion to delete BC 011 and replace with the following: to receive the original report, to amend the licensing fee bylaw subject to the changes as noted in A and B, and that will up the net revenue increase to 80,000, I believe it is. 20,000 from the original report plus 60,000 from this. And the third recommendation is staff continue the review of the adult entertainment establishment bylaw that Teresa Olson had outlined.
Okay. So this is moved by Councillor Santos. Do we need a seconder? These were in. I'm happy to second that if anyone else. Okay, I'll second that. All those in favor? Motion carries. We have no other questions. That takes us to motions. The first motion is to consider item 5.1, the Budget Committee minutes from February 18th, 19th, 20th, 24th, and 25th. We will go through the Budget Committee recommendations page by page for voting purposes. Where necessary, Council can take separate and recorded votes on a member request or declared conflicts of interest. Second, a motion to consider item 4.1, the 2020 operating and capital budget technical recommendations as prepared by the Treasurer and Finance Division to complete the budget. And at this time, I think it would be appropriate to have the summary and to see what last-minute tinkering we may need to do, given this last motion that passed. So to David?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm just waiting for it to come up here. So if we go to slide 1. There we go. Okay, if you recall, early in our presentation, we had spoke about a 1.2% city property tax increase. That was generate $5.7 million. Through Budget Committee, there are a number of motions passed by Budget Committee that are presented here today in the special council meeting. The first motion dealt with the BAA financial assistance for the levy shortfall. So that was council approving option 1 from the presentation by staff. So that was an impact of $38,000. We then passed the motion. I should also speak about the BIA that there is an additional $22,000. Staff do require some clarity on that. It was part of the BIA's presentation. It's an increase to cover additional rent relief. So there is in the motions that we'll consider later on that consideration. We do have BIA staff here today as well to speak to that if there are questions. But we did not discuss it during the Budget Committee, so staff need to seek some clarity on that, whether that needs to be included or not. We also passed a motion to the Budget Committee on increasing the grass cuts from 10 to 12. So that had an impact of $480,000, so that is built in here. We added in grass cutting at the fence lines 3 times per season for an additional $100,000. We added the extension of the Zoom transit service to Pearson Airport, which includes 12 full-time staff for a net budget impact of $900,000. We've offset that on a one-time basis from 2019 operating surplus. We've added in the additional transit service hours with 18 full-time staff for a net budget increase of $1.5 million. And we've offset that with a base revenue adjustment for transit. Also, committee considered the fare increase report for transit, and there was a motion not to increase use fares, so that would have an impact of $250,000. There was a motion put forward for consideration of an environmental coordinator for 1 full-time staff. Staff are suggesting that be found, the funding for that be found by repurposing an existing vacant position. So there would be no impact to the budget on that. And then we had talked about substituting with funds that had been returned from projects that were closed out because they have been completed, and utilizing those funds to substitute in for previously approved external debt, which would reduce our debt financing payments. So that had a savings of $1.43 million to the budget. There was also the motion, which I have on the next slide as well, which we'll speak to a bit later in a moment, that saw a reduction in contributions to reserves. And then the remaining difference is about $147,000. And by doing all of the items in this list, that would achieve a city increase of 0% overall on the overall blended tax bill, 0%, and obviously the whole blended tax bill would be 1.3%, of which that whole 1.3% pertains to the region appeals increase. What we have not included here is the additional revenues that we considered with the motion that just passed previously. So that could actually reduce that operating surplus line, and then also we have to consider the $22,000 for the BIA rent relief. If we go to the next slide, so I mentioned that council passed the following motion that you see on the screen here for staff to make the necessary adjustments to the reserves of $5 million, which represents approximately 1% of the net of the 2020 operating budget. I wanted to make it clear, and if we can go to the page from the budget document, so it's in the operating overview section, operating page 15. So these are our contributions to reserves. So this is where staff would work within to determine where the $5 million would come. I wanted to make it clear that we are still contributing $29 million more this year than last year.
And David, just for the benefit of council, this is the largest contribution in city history.
Absolutely.
This year.
Absolutely.
Largest in city history.
And then I guess if we go to the next page, we'll deal with the capital items. So there are a number of capital motions passed regarding capital as well. So we added in $1.25 million for funded from cash in lieu of parkland for park enhancements program on a one-time basis for 2020. There was a motion passed to remove the core data and voice program to the tune of $2 million. There was a motion to move funding from the communications master plan to 2021. There's a bit of a correction there, so we've actually, the department required $25,000, not $35,000. The budget was $60,000, so we've only kept 25, not 35 in 2020, and we've moved 35,000 to 2021. So I think the way the motion was originally written, we had 10,000 more than we had required. And then there was a city rebranding, which was also asked to be removed as well. And so you see there the change plus minus to the capital budget submission. So the overall 2020 capital budget currently stands at $222 million. 2021 stands at $592 million. I want to make mention, as I did in my earlier presentation, that there are two significant projects that had been moved from 2020 to 2021, as there's a lot of work required in advance of the construction of those facilities. So there's land acquisition, there's design work that's required, there's transit studies underway for those projects that are required in advance of procuring that construction work. So they had been moved out to 2021, and they make up a fairly large, substantial amount of that 2021 ask. And that is where we stand as of today with the motion.
Councillor Singh.
Just for the public, could you highlight those two projects?
Yes, the one project is the transit storage facility.
Yeah.
Alex would be able to provide
Yeah,
more
yeah.
impact on there. And that's a $175 million ask in 2021. So
Yeah.
fairly large project
Yeah.
that's obviously a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah.
Those types of projects don't happen every year. And $50 million for the
Center for Innovation?
No, it's for a road. Williams Parkway.
Okay.
Was
Yeah.
pushed out for 1
Okay.
year. Yes,
And just curious, where does our general rate stabilization stand now with all these changes? Was it affected at all, or?
No, it
Okay.
doesn't affect where we are.
Okay, perfect. And so we have two levies. We have our transit and our infrastructure levy.
That's correct. The infrastructure levy is still in here, 2%.
And that doesn't go into, any portion of that go into reserves or no?
So the funding initially goes into the reserve, and then we obviously have projects that we fund from it.
Okay. So it doesn't get used right away every year?
Well, for the most part, it does.
Okay.
It depending on the cycle in the year,
Yeah.
year to year, there's sometimes peaks and valleys in budgeting processes, just
Yeah.
in terms of timing when projects actually come forward. So there sometimes is some amounts left
Yeah.
in the reserve, but we try to manage that year to year to ensure.
Okay. And with this 5 million taken out of reserves, it won't affect our capital asset management? Okay, just wanted that clarity. And I have asked, and I'll just reiterate for next budget, and we are gonna start it earlier, I believe, as well. If we could just do a benchmarking of our reserves with other municipalities, and also that tax competitiveness study. I think it'd just be helpful for council as we make our decision, especially the reserve side as well. And, but I'm okay with all the changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Willens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Peter, could you go back to the very first slide of this? No, I guess one or two slides back. Here, right there. First one, grass cutting fence lines 3 times per season. I know it's not much, but doesn't that go against our, maybe I'll ask staff, go against our naturalization program that we have along the parks? I would prefer to see maybe where we've got complaints maybe, but I think I would rather see us growing some fescues and plants that help curb the noxious weeds from the fence lines on the properties, so leaning more towards the naturalization. But I mean, it's not a big ask, so it doesn't impact the budget. But also in the environmental coordinator, there's no amount there. They said they're going to repurpose it, but this doesn't take away from the staff that we are looking for to get us, that were required by the Global Covenant of Mayors on Climate and Energy. Doesn't take away from that position. This is an added position.
Through the chair, so this would be on a corporate basis. We would look through our vacant complement
Because I know
not
we're required.
necessarily specific within that
Okay,
division.
because I know we're required by the Global Covenant to have that other staff member there, and we're working on that. So as long as it doesn't take away that, and this is a corporate one that falls, and this will fall under, I think, Michael Wan's division likely, this environmental coordinator, but work with all divisions. I think that's the intent. I wasn't here when Councilor Bowman brought this motion forward.
I believe that's the right area for it.
Okay, good, I'm fine. But maybe we can look at that. Maybe we can look at that with staff on the naturalization side of it. I'm looking there, seeing if I can get some nods from our staff, because I think it's going against what we're trying to do when we're cutting up the fence lines. I know Councilor Pleshy, we don't get a lot of complaints. We get a few, and our staff is generally pretty good about going out there and explaining why we have it naturalized to the fence lines. So maybe if there is some real issues, we can look at that and maybe get this number down. But I prefer to see naturalized in the fence lines. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wellens. Councilor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, Councilor Willens did miss the extensive debate we had yesterday on grass cutting. And you were for a good cause, 100%. But we did talk about the potential for having some of the maybe newer something, whatever it was, laid that kind of falls over, that grows to a certain height, falls over. So there's going to be opportunities. I think it's different. Our wards are a little bit different in the newer areas around the storm, because we are the rest of it, because of the stormwater management ponds as opposed to some of the other areas in Brampton. So I know Rob will do whatever he can to get that number down a little bit lower. Peter, if you could bring back the capital. Oh, it's the other way, yeah. And then, so there's the 35, the 40. And then if you could put the motion that captured, my motion on capturing the core data, the communications, the rebrand, but then also the temporary park. And so I've had a discussion with staff, and we're going to work with TRCA to ensure that we keep this number as low as possible. We don't believe that we can remove the entire 700,000 because of the sensitive land use. So we're going to go to the 450, and Derek has assured me that they will be strict on that 450,000, ensure that we make sure that everything is accounted for and we do it as inexpensive as we can. So I'm happy to move that forward now, Mr. Mayor, and then through you to.
And I would note this is a capital budget item, not an operating.
Yep. So if we can, do we want to capture that in the kind of the slide that you had already done, or?
Yeah, and I know that this was at request of staff too, right?
Yes, yep. But we're going to set up a meeting with TRCA and have those discussions to see what we can do.
Okay, moved by Councilor Paleshi, seconded by Councilor Bowman. All those in favor? Motion carries. You done? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Dave, what is the current surplus at? I know we had a number and now we've got a new number. What does it currently stand at?
The current surplus unaudited stands at $2.8 million.
Okay, and so will we, as we approved yesterday, 25% of that will be going into an environmental fund. So what does that 25% look like in terms of dollars at this point?
So it would have to be after accounting for the adjustments that we've made here, because we've allocated $900,000 plus an additional 147. So I think we're looking at somewhere in the range of a little over, let's say, $300,000, $400,000.
$300,000 to $400,000 for the initial investment in that fund. Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Pleshy, back on the board?
No.
Okay, that takes us to motions. And Peter will put them on the screen.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so typically the first set would be the Budget Committee recommendations, which are on the screen, and we can go through and deal with them in sequence. There are a number of them that are more procedural, and there are a few others, because some members have declared conflicts, that we'll have to take separate votes on those.
We'll take your guidance on that.
Okay. So what I'll suggest then is we just proceed for council to ratify a group of recommendations. The first four on here, BC 001 to 004, are really just procedural motions to approve the agenda. Then we have BC 005, 006, which are receiving the various presentations from the departments. 007 is receiving the various delegations over the multi-day budget committee deliberations. BC 008 was referenced by the treasurer in terms of this is the BIA budget, and some additional language is put in here, should council wish to introduce that, just to clarify the budget submission that is being approved.
Now, that language has been added in. Does that affect it's already included in the tally? Okay. I know Councilor Medeiros wanted to put that forward, so when that comes, we'll have him put that forward.
Okay, so that'll be moved by Councilor Medeiros, that amendment. And then we have BC 009, which is the Brampton Library Board operating capital budget. We have then getting into some of the reports the Budget Committee considered. BC 010 is the installation of the Brampton sign. Council deliberated tonight on the adult entertainment establishment license fees and deleted recommendation BC 011 and replaced it with what was carried in red. We have BC 012, which is approval of the business licensing fee increases for 2020. BC 013 are the various user fee amendments to the user fee bylaw that were suggested in a staff report. BC 014, the Brampton Transit fare changes. And of note is clause 4, that was added by Budget Committee, that there be no increased fares for youth fee category 12 to 19 at this time. BC 015 is a report, it was advice from Finance regarding financial assistance to the Downtown Brampton BIA, and this was the option that Budget Committee chose in going forward. We have BC 016, which is just receiving the third quarter operating budget and reserve report. That was referred to Budget Committee. BC 017 is receiving various correspondence presented during the budget deliberations. And then we get into a number of recommendations which were introduced yesterday at Budget Committee deliberations. The first is BC 018, dealing with grass cutting, and a number of these have already been reviewed by the treasurer in his synopsis. And skip over those. These are all amendments that were introduced yesterday, and the Councillor Paleshi amendment in regards to the $700,000 to $450. And then finally, we have the set of approvals for the various departmental budgets, and there are 3 under BC 019, A, B, and C. So what I recommend to council is first we deal with that part, and all members of council can vote on that. And then we'll take subsequent votes on the next 3 clauses.
Okay, so we want to start?
Sure. So perhaps we'll take a vote first on, I'll highlight the clause. Actually, for simplicity, let's take a vote on what's highlighted, which is the operating budgets, except for 3 portions for which a conflict has been declared. Just ask if all in favor.
And do we need a mover?
Yes, we do need a mover for all of these.
Except for the conflict ones?
Yes.
Okay, so moved by Councilor Vicente, seconded by Councilor Santos. Sorry?
Court vote just on this portion that's highlighted, if that's the will of council. Okay.
Okay.
So recorded vote's been requested on a portion of BC 019-2020. All members in favor, please stand. All showing in favor is Councilor Santos, Councilor Vicente, Councilor Willens, Councilor Paleshi, Councilor Bowman, Mayor Brown, Councilor Medeiros, Councilor Williams, Councilor Fortini, Councilor Singh, and Councilor Dillon. Mr. Mayor, that motion carries unanimously, that portion of the motion. The next clause relates to compensation portion of the Public Works and Engineering Department. Councilor Williams has declared conflict, so he's leaving for that portion. So we'll need a member to move that.
Okay, moved by Councilor Fortini, seconded by Councilor Medeiros. All in favor? Motion carries.
So Councilor
Okay.
Willens can return. The next portion relates
Doug, come back.
to the compensation portion of the Enforcement and Bylaw Services Division of the Corporate Services Department budget. Councilor Fortini had declared a conflict and has left.
Okay, mover of the motion, Councilor Singh, Councilor Dillon. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you. The third portion is the grant funding portion of the Economic Development and Culture Department. Councilor Bowman declared a conflict and has left.
Moved by Councilor Paleshi, seconded by Councilor Williams. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you. The remaining portion of this relates to the 2020 capital budget submission for approval for all the corporate departments and programs, and the 2021 and 2022 in principle approval of those respective capital budgets.
Okay. Moved by Councilor Bowman. Record a vote. Moved by Councilor Bowman, seconded by Councilor Medeiros.
Recorded vote on the capital budget. All in favor, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councilor Dillon, Councilor Singh, Councilor Fortini, Councilor Williams, Councilor Medeiros, Mayor Brown, Councilor Bowman, Councilor Paleshi, Councilor Willens, Councilor Vicente, and Councilor Santos. Mr. Mayor, that motion carries unanimously, 11-0. The next motion is BC 20, and that's staff be requested to provide recommendation to special counsel related to the creation of the environmental coordinator, which I believe is accounted for. 21 is in relation to the external debt, and then 22 is to adjourn the meeting. So those are the motions.
Okay, so we'll go to the first one, the environmental coordinator. We need a mover or a seconder, so I suggest moved by Councilor Willen, seconded by Councilor Bowman. All those in favor? Motion carries. The second one, external debt related to fire headquarters, moved by Councilor Santos, seconded by Councilor Williams. All those in favor? Motion carries.
And then, Mr. Mayor, perhaps for the balance of the others which haven't been moved or seconded that I've just gone through, we can just do it as one motion.
Do we have all those motions on the screen, or?
I've just gone through them all, except for the ones that we voted on. So we just need a
And
mover.
we don't need separate movers and seconders?
No, we can do it as one collective motion. So just one mover and one seconder.
Okay. So maybe I'll move the remaining motions to second by Councilor Medeiros. All those in favor? Motion carries.
So, Mr. Mayor, those are the Budget Committee recommendations. There are also a set of what are referred to as technical recommendations to sort of complete the budget that Finance have put together. And those are on the screen here. And I don't know if staff wish to just review them or...
I think these are, I think maybe everyone will read them on the screen. If there's any questions, we can ask them. These are more technical in nature.
Technical and administrative, just to complete the budget process and approvals.
Has everyone had a chance to read what's on the screen? Okay. Okay.
Recorded vote's been requested on the technical recommendations. We need a mover and seconder.
Moved by Councillor Palashi, seconded by Councillor Fortini.
All in favor of the technical recommendations, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Dillon, Councillor Singh, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Williams, Councillor Maderos, Mayor Brown, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Palashi, Councillor Willens, Councillor Vasante, Councillor Santos. Mr. Mayor, that motion carries unanimously 11-0.
Okay, so the budget is officially passed. Congratulations, City Council. And we have the bylaw and the motion to adjourn, correct? Oh, public question period. Before we go to public question period, I just want to thank, first of all, the city staff that worked hard on this budget. We've all had a lot of questions, and we've asked them to staff, and we've forced them to send us late-night emails responding to technical questions. We've had these meetings in public, but I can tell you there's been countless meetings, one-on-one with commissioners and directors, with councillors who have had endless inquiries. And so I just want to say on behalf of City Council to our city staff, thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Secondly, I want to say to all the public delegations, you show a lot of passion for our city, for coming forward with ideas, with helping us have a budget that is driven by the citizens. And I see members who are here tonight who have been here numerous times, whether it is a passionate transit advocate like Sylvia Roberts, whether it's the Board of Trade that was looking out for making sure we had a competitive tax rate, to residents who came forward with ideas that related to their neighborhood. I want to say thank you for caring so passionately about your city, and I'm very proud of this budget. Not only have we delivered our second straight tax freeze, but we're making a record contribution into our city reserves, which is showing that we're looking towards the future. We're one of the few cities with a transit and infrastructure levy. We're making significant investments in recreation, and certainly I think this is a document that we can be very proud of. So congratulations, Council, for your hard work on this, and I think this is a night that we can all be very proud of. So on that note, are there any public questions before we adjourn the meeting? Seeing none, the confirming bylaw moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Singh. All those in favor? And then the motion to adjourn moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Singh. All those in favor? Motion carries.